Welcome to BioStream 360. I'm Owen Ambrose, and today we're on the hunt for dinosaur DNA. Well, sort of. In preparation for today's adventure, you'll notice that a couple of recommended videos have just popped up. Do me a favor and watch those videos. You could pause this one as you do it, and at the same time, open up Google Earth or any other satellite imaging program. It's going to help you out as I refer to certain places. As I make my way to today's site, please learn how to use the 360 function of this video. You'll notice in the top left corner, there's a crosshair. If you move that crosshair around, you can view anywhere within the range of my camera. If you're using a phone, you could just move the phone around and see it that way. So here we are, the Crossman Clay Pit in Sayreville, New Jersey. Now, you should notice that there's a lot of digging that goes on here. Now, what could people be digging for? You've probably guessed it by now. Amber. In those videos that you watched, there are a couple of concepts brought up. There's a piece of amber found, and inside of it's a mosquito. Blood within that mosquito came from a dinosaur, and it's eventually used to clone and create new dinosaurs. Today, we're going to investigate whether or not that's actually possible. And I'll tell you right off the bat that based on that location in the film, it's not. Most amber that's commercially found is actually far too young to contain anything that came from dinosaurs. In fact, Dominican amber, like the stuff found in that film, is about 25 million years old, meaning that the last dinosaurs left the earth about 75 million years before that amber came around. And that's what makes this site so special. Because here at the Crossman Clay Pits in Sayreville, New Jersey, there's amber from the golden age of dinosaurs. When I say golden age of dinosaurs, I'm talking about those iconic dinosaurs that you're thinking of. Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Stegosaurus. They were all here around that time. And that time was about 97, 96 million years ago. So, pretty different from what you see in that film. Yet it's true. This exact spot has amber of that age. And I'm going to tell you how it got there. So this location is actually what remains of an ancient lagoon. That lagoon was made of brackish water, meaning water that was a mix of salt and fresh water. And it's because at that point the ocean came much closer to this area. On top of that, if you go to your Google Earth or satellite imaging program, look up Sayreville, New Jersey, Kennedy Park. Now when you're there, zoom out a little bit, and I want you to see a place called the Raritan River. About 100 million years ago, the Raritan River was much closer to this area. Over time, rivers change. Over time, the planet changes. And when the river was closer to here, parts of it would feed in and create a marsh or lagoon in this spot. Within that lagoon, there were giant trees growing in the style of mangroves. And what I'm going to present to you today is the idea that those trees were receiving interactions by insects, and that insects could have been trapped in the sap released by those trees. In a follow-up video to this one, I'll actually prove how we know that's true. But for now, let's look at how amber is found, how we dig it, and what it actually comes from. So I'm going into probably the most heavily dug hole here. And what I want you to notice is that within this hole, there are a few different layers. We have layers of clay, we have layers of sand, but between them, sometimes if we're lucky, we find layers of this black stuff. And that black stuff is called lignite. So lignite is actually carbonized plant matter. And what you have to imagine is that about 100 million years ago, every time it rained, the Raritan River would flood, this lagoon would get surged in, and any dead plant matter on the ground would eventually be washed up into layers. As that process happened over and over, clay or sand would be deposited on top or beneath of that lignite. And so what happens here is we dig down, we find layers of lignite, and we break it up. Lignite is extremely brittle, and so as we break it, we hope to find pieces of other plant matter trapped inside. And that other plant matter would be the amber that I'm referring to. So what is amber? Well, again, as trees were interacted with from insects or fires or large animals such as dinosaurs, they would release little bursts of sap as a form of defense. Now, sap is actually a pretty simple thing. It's a mix of simple sugars in their monomer form and hormones. The hope of the plant was that whatever is bothering the tree would either get trapped in or chased away because of that sticky substance. But sap in of itself is not very sturdy. As it's hit by oxygen or sunlight or water, it breaks down and washes away. And that's what makes this site so special. Because of that ancient lagoon formation, because the water was brackish, the trees, as they released their sap in defense, would actually drop the sap directly into the brackish water. And because that water was so deprived of oxygen, the sap, instead of deteriorating, would get preserved. And so those simple monomers, the simple sugars that built it, would actually join together and form polymers. And the structure of the sap would become more and more complex, and the nature of the sap would change. So it would go from something soft and sticky to something hard and waterproof that could last 100 million years. And that's what we find here. So of course then the question remains, how do we know that that sap was being released at the same time that insects that could have been drinking blood from dinosaurs was even here? Again, in the follow-up video, I'll support that idea. Now we're going to go, but before we do that, I want you to take in the environment of the Crossman Clay Pits. Again, this extremely rare place with a resource that is almost non-existent throughout the rest of the world is right here in New Jersey. You would never think it, but the problem is it won't be here for much longer. Notice in the distance where the sun is setting, there are houses built. This lagoon stretched much further in that direction, but it's gone, and people live there now. In that direction, you could see a gray wall being built and a lot of earth piled up beneath it. If we came here during any other time of day, you would notice construction going on over there. In fact, right in that direction, there's already a train track, and on the opposite side of that, there are more houses. This ground that I'm standing on right now is slated for development any day and won't be here much longer, and I'm glad you got to see it. I'm Owen Ambrose, this was BioStream 360, and I can't wait for you to see where we end up next time.